million, and she has been recognized as being one of the forerunners of emerging economic development solutions. She believes that the economic status of women is the most promising solution to alleviate poverty around the world. Now we will have our keynote speaker, Taneva.
We're going to start out with the Lakota saying, "Today is a good day to die." Today is a good day to die is indeed a courageous way to live and die. And I have made my life purpose to be able to live my best life and to be able to help others learn what it means to live their best life. I believe that we were all given the privilege, the blessing, the treat, the opportunity, the freedom, the choice to live our best lives. We all get to define what that means for ourselves. And I believe that we should pursue it with a passion to drive our actions, the awareness of its beauty that allows us to make it a reality. So tonight I want to ask you a few questions as I talk about Dr. Martin Luther King's dream and whether or not that dream was realized, and whether or not it was realized collectively or whether it was realized individually, and whether you're seeing it and realizing it in your own personal life and the lives that we all collectively lead as members of the United States or as citizens of the United States. So the question I want to ask you tonight is, what is your dream? And are you living that dream? Are you living your best life? For many years, I've been asking people this question through my coaching practice and through speakers of numerous causes and just to people in general. I have always been curious about why people live in opposition to their own lives. I've never been able to understand why so many people are so unhappy with who they are, with their image, that they distort themselves with too much weight and drugs and self-deprecation and anger and resentment and racism and injustices in the world. What that tells me is as people live their lives, and because they're not happy with who they are, that they inflict that pain and suffering of who they are on the rest of the people and the rest of the world by imposing your beliefs, by imposing your unhappiness on other people. And I don't understand why we do that. I really don't understand, and I want us to really focus this conversation that we're going to have tonight. So I want you just to, for 1 minute, close your eyes. And I'm going to ask you a few questions. And these questions are not about what other people are doing. It's really about you, where your purpose and your passion are aligned, where your skills and knowledge give you the tools to make the life that you deserve happen. A life where what you do and how you make a living fulfill your purpose. I was happy to hear that Kendra recognized that when she changed her attitude, her grades changed. We all have that power. We all have the ability to define our own lives, to live the lives that fulfill our purpose. But far, far too many of us are too afraid or too hurt or too injured or too whatever to really go about saying that I deserve to live my best life. And I am going to make sure that I do it. And it doesn't matter whatever it takes. We've all seen people overcome phenomenal odds. We've all seen that people live with all kinds of issues and things that they have to face in their lives, and yet they figure out a way to overcome it. And the only way, I believe, that can happen is when you make a promise to yourself that you deserve to live your best life. And that you are the only person on the planet that's going to make sure that you live that life. So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about your mission, the mission of the NAACP. We're going to talk about your personal mission. So how did this work begin for me? What made me think that I had to go around and talk to people about living their best life? I read something. I was asked to give a commencement speech at Anoka County Technical College, as a matter of fact. And in preparing for making that speech, about 2 or 3 days before, somebody sent me a card. And I read a story about a woman on the card that I was unfamiliar with. You may know her. Her name is Eddie Hilson. But I did not know Eddie's story. You all heard Anne Frank's story, and you all the popularity of women writing in diaries in that period of time. I write in a diary, and all of you should too. I like to be able to go back and look at what I was thinking. There's a period of time when I wrote in a diary that I wrote about other people all the time. I wrote about my husbands and what they were doing to me and how I didn't like them and and then all of a sudden I realized that this was like wasting a whole bunch of time because it was trying to control somebody else. Yes. And if I really wanted to really focus on what I wanted to have, I needed to figure out how I could control who I was. And so I started writing in my diary and writing letters and things to myself. So anyways, Eddie Hilson was a 27-year-old Dutch Jew living in occupied Amsterdam in the Westbrook concentration camps in Holland. And her diaries are found in the walls of Auschwitz, where she died. As she suffered unspeakable atrocities, which she described in a book called An Interrupted Life in Diaries, she remained committed to Jean's teaching to live with the spirituality of hope in the world's darkest period. Her self-awareness and her ability to create the life that she lived gave her the fortitude to write, "I refuse to kneel, but I have learned to pray." In that prison, on another page, in her diary on another page, she wrote something that was so powerful to me that I had a really difficult time reading it, and I've read it 1,000,000 times. And what she wrote was, and this entry symbolizes that we create our perceptions of the world, and that we have the power to create the perceptions no matter where we are, to manifest the best life imaginable if we choose to. Eddie wrote that at night, as I walk along the barbed wire fence, this feeling comes over me. No matter how hard I try to fight it, this force comes over me time and time again. This feeling that puts a spring in my step. This feeling that life is beautiful and magnificent, and that someday we will find peace and humanity. What is so powerful about that statement to me is that if Eddie Hilson at Auschwitz, before she was to be killed, and knowing what was her fate, can see the beauty in the world and express that beauty, then what the hell is wrong with us? What's wrong with us? How come my eyelids aren't long enough? My eyelashes. How come I don't have the right clothes? How come I'm angry at other people? How come I won't let people live their lives the way they want to live their lives, and I impose my beliefs and my feelings and deny people the right to find their happiness in their lives? How come my car is not big enough? How come I, as a kid who had an opportunity to go to school, don't take advantage of the education that's before me? How come we are allowing what's happening in our country to be happening in our country today? If Eddie Hilson can define a world that is beautiful where she was. What's wrong with us? What's wrong with us? So I believe through that story that the spiritual awareness and the belief in humanity is what the world has got to do. And that we in America in 2011, 48 years after Martin Luther King's speech, if we find ourselves living in fear and out of control, it's because we choose to. We choose to. We can create whatever kind of world we want to have. But what are we really doing 48 years after Martin Luther King's dream? And how have we allowed so many things that he fought so hard for to be eroding in this country the way that it is? One of the things that I read about is that you ensure the political and educational and social and economic equality of all our citizens. Okay? Then what do you do? Because how can the economic equality that we are experiencing in this country have not passed health care reform? How can we allow them to derail, and then I'm getting a little political, but how can we allow people to derail the process that would have made sure that all of us in this room had health insurance and the ability? Does it mean that death is a sentence of being poor in America? That death and the poverty and the things that are associated with this? If you recall, the last march that Martin Luther King marched on was for the middle class, was for the garbage workers, to ensure that they had a livable wage job that allowed them to be able to support their families. What are we doing now in this country in eroding the middle class by not allowing people to have livable wage jobs? And if you do have a livable wage job, then what are we doing to make sure that your health insurance is not associated with your employment? I am now, for the first time in my 50-some years on this planet, one of the 1 in 6 Americans that has chosen not to have health insurance. That's just not right. It's just not right. But you know what? With my pre-existing arthritis, I can't afford it. And it really is about this decision. I'm a small business owner now and an entrepreneur, and have started in my own business. And so this was a conscious decision that I made. But I'm telling you, and there's a lot of folks I'm finding out that are off the grid and make cutting deals with doctors and doing all kinds of things. But again, if you believe in equality and all of those things, then how can you live in a country where we don't allow people to have health insurance, that we have said that that's not a right that we are all entitled to, and the only people that get that right is a certain segment of the population? If you are so much for equality, then why in the hell have you passed legislation that does not reduce the achievement gap for the most valuable resources, the children that we have in this country? African American children who fought for the Board of Education to be able to be educated in this country have the lowest achievement gaps in this country. Less than 32% of the kids that are in the Minneapolis public school system at this point in time graduate, African American boys. What is wrong with us as a country that we would allow that to be happening in 2011 when we need our children to be educated to the nth degree to help pull us out of this economic environment that we are in? And I'm not only talking about the systems and the social program, because there's another little part of me that has to always turn and look at black folks that are in this room. And I'm going to tell you, how have you allowed your children not to take advantage of the educational systems that are out there? How have you allowed people to die so that your kids could go to school wherever they wanted to go to, and you are not ensuring that they take full advantage of the educational system that is going on? How dare you? How dare you? And to all you little children that sitting around in this room watching television, doing all those little things that you're doing, how dare you not take advantage of the education that you have?